Welcome, Foul Tarnished. You are listening to Elden Kings, an Elden Ring discussion. This is Gideon the Half-Knowing, and today's topic is lesser-known details in the Soulsborne series. There's a lot of minute details out there that people miss very easily, so we want to get into that today, as well as just general weapons, spells, armor, talismans, all of the good stuff that goes into a good build. And joining us today is someone that has quite a bit of experience talking about both, and is taking time out of his busy subathon to join us at the Roundtable hold, is Dom's Roundtable. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, the pleasure is all mine. I'm glad you took the time to join us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's finally warmed up in the States, so I can go outside and walk my cats and just relax in the sun. It's nice.
That's amazing. I'm really sorry to immediately go off topic, but you walk your cats.
I do. I've got these harnesses that we can put on them, and me and my girlfriend, we even have a stroller that we put them in sometimes. So
that is adorable. I'm not gonna lie. I love that.
Yes, they're quite cute. We've trained our calico to or not calico, but tortoiseshell. I guess tortoiseshells are calicos, but we've trained her to go by the door and wait there, staring at us very mournfully until we let her out with us.
Oh, that is so cute.
Yes. Do you own any cats of your own?
No, I have a dog.
Oh, okay.
But I love both.
Yeah, I mean, dogs are great too, honestly. They are very good companions.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so back on topic. I've seen some of your things you missed videos, especially about Elden Ring, and I definitely like how you cover obviously you cover the things that people missed. Would you like to get into your mindset with making those at all?
Oh, I would love to. Apologies if I go off on a bit of a rant, but I love talking about it, so thank you for asking. There is a darker part to this story as well that I will come into later on the podcast if we want to. I don't want to immediately make this. I want to keep it lighthearted and fun because I just do. But yeah, so basically, with that aside, my main thought was I love the Souls franchise. I absolutely adore Dark Souls. Elden Ring being my personal favorite of the lot. But the fact of the matter is, it is an enormous game. It's such a huge game. And I wanted to be able to make that accessible for people who don't have as much time on their hands. I had a huge amount of time on my hands when Elden Ring first came out, and that's when I get into the reason why. The reason behind that is quite dark, so I'll leave that for now. But because of that, I just dove headfirst into Elden Ring, and I was like, I am just going to play this game to death, take my mind off everything else that's going on. And I truly did just comb through every single area in the game so that it was all I was thinking about. And after my first week of playtime, I had already finished the game. And I thought, wow, I probably know this more than most people in the world right now, purely because I've just played it so much. So let's revisit the first area again. Let's thoroughly comb it, and let's start bringing all this information to everyone that may not have the time to do so, to make it more accessible for the casual gamer. And then the Things You Missed series was born.
That's a good story for it, and I like that you had such a good game to take your mind off of things in the moment, to really dive into and let all of the worries of the world dissolve into learning about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But like you said, we can get into that more a little bit later, because it really is incredible to talk about how well Elden Ring just sort of it hides so many small details in such a big game that you're sort of constantly astounded by the level of detail and just very minute little places. And I'm glad that you had such a drive to share that with people. I finished the game in a week, and I did not go and make videos about it like you did. I just sort of ranted on Discord to my friends about the lore. But I really like that you went out there and you tried to share that with people.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, like you say, it is. But to this day, as you mentioned right at the start, doing a subathon at the moment on Twitch to celebrate my first year full time content creating, and I even now during my most recent playthrough, I'm currently doing what is currently referred to as the Pokemon Trainer run. I am only allowed to deal damage with my summons. It's a challenge run. And even now, I'm still finding new things about the game. I literally found a new Stone Sword key in Castle Morn down in the Weeping Peninsula last night, and I was like, "Where has this been? All my other 25 playthroughs."
That's so cool. It's just like there's always more that the game has to offer. And I love that you like,
Always.
because like the Stone Sword keys are always in low supply early
Yeah,
on.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so I created the first couple of videos of the Things You Missed series. I thought, pop it out there for the people that care. I really wasn't expecting it to take off. I was still a relatively small YouTube channel at the time. People loved it. It absolutely blew up. So I thought, right, okay, I now need to do this for the whole entire game. And of course, I'll be continuing it when the DLC comes out as well.
Hell yeah. I wonder how many areas we're gonna get that you'll be able to get it like do it in, you know? Like
Oh, I hope so many. It's purely speculation, of course, but I have heard that the DLC is estimated to be half the main game. So we're getting like a whole another 50% of the game. I don't know how true this is, but the sources that have been leaking this information have been known to be very accurate in the past. So I hope so. That would be amazing.
you see, this is one of the reasons I love having a podcast, because I had no idea that was going on, but I feel like I get
Right.
to be one of the first few people to hear about that. That is fantastic. I had Zero
Yeah,
Storm
man.
on at some point, and he leaked the Armored Core 6 announcement to me, which was
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic to learn. And I mean, I I would love a DLC of that magnitude. And I feel like they sort of like, I mean, if you look at Witcher with the what Blood and Wine DLC, I think it's called, that is
You
huge.
you have just accidentally identified my favorite DLC of any video game ever. Blood and Wine was gorgeous. The whole French Knights, Toussaint, that whole area was so stunning. I love that DLC so much.
I watched my brother play a bit of it, and it, like you say, it's really just a stunning location in an already
Yeah.
beautiful game. I guess I bring it up, like I feel like obviously The Witcher is such a like important open world game in the modern gaming sphere. I feel like Elden Ring probably took some amount of inspiration from that. So maybe within the DLC aspect, they definitely might want to deliver on the whole new spin on like the experience idea.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that idea.
So, what were some of your favorite videos to make for the Things You Missed series?
Oh, good question. It might be a bit of a boring answer, but the early ones, purely because I'm sure we will all feel this. No matter how good you get at the game, and no matter how much you learn the game, the further along you get, the harder it's gonna be. And you would not believe the amount of times I had to re-record like a cave in the consecrated snowfields because I'd get halfway through and then I'd die. It's it's a tough game at the end of the day.
Yeah, it really is. Like some of those enemies will two or three or four shot you, and they've got some pretty mean combos to do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I mean, my absolute favorite area is got to be Lanedale Royal Capital. But that wasn't necessarily my favorite video to record because there is so much stuff all built up into such a small space, like all these winding streets and varying different levels, and then the sewers as well. So, as much as I think that area is gorgeous, oh, that was a pain to record. And I'm pretty sure even I missed at least a few things in that one.
Yeah, it's a massive level with just like numerous pathways that you're sort of meant to take one of and not backtrack through, because if you do try to backtrack, it is a lot of enemies to fight. Like it's a fun and beautiful and very intense level if you try to do a full clear, especially if you're trying to find all of the secrets there.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%.
So you said that Landel was your favorite level to make a video on. Is that your favorite level in general for the game, or do you have some other opinions when it comes to playing through the levels at a casual standpoint?
Yeah, so I mean, to an extent, it kind of depends what mood I'm in. But it's a question I've been asked on a stream a few times, like, what's your favorite area? What's your favorite enemy? What's your most hated enemy? And my answers always surprise people. I think maybe I'm a bit of a masochist. Like, I do love the really difficult games, and to that end, my favorite area is actually Caelid. Most people are disgusted at me when I say that. How dare you? That's filthy. But I love it. I just think it's um I don't know, I think because you can visit such a late game area so early on in the game, and because it's got such a contrast to Limgrave, there's these beautiful green fields and the sun's shining, and menacingly looming in the distance is this purely red landscape with loads of intimidating enemies. And I don't know, I love the vibe, I love the atmosphere.
I like the way you describe it. It's very poetic.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that was intentional. I think as I was answering that question and describing that to you, then it's the first time I've ever actually described it like that. And as I was saying it, I thought this is like you say, it's poetic. So maybe that was very intentional on FromSoft's part.
I think that there's definitely an intended sort of disparity to be seen between the sort of beautiful rolling hills of Limgrave, which has been more or less preserved since the Shattering, and this moment where you're approaching the smoldering wall and you see this burnt out church and the grass becomes sparser and you see this red sky ahead. And once you pass it, you see like this distinct change in the ground itself where it starts to decay and rot, as if the smoldering wall is holding back a tide of sickness, and you just have to it's just I think it's a very meaningful transition. So I think you're definitely onto something with thinking that it's intended.
Definitely. I love the way you just described it as well. That's even more thought than I've given it, and I absolutely love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight because that's so cool. I I really, really hope this is purely a fantasy for me because there's many ways they could take the lands between with the expansion. But I really hope because if FromSoft's other expansions are anything to go by, they always go back to in the past. They always go back in the past. So I'd love to be able to revisit Caelid like in its glory days before this happened and see how it looks.
Oh my goodness. I have given that sort of an astounding amount of thought. I guess,
Yeah.
so I will share with you, it's a little bit nerdy, but I do indulge myself in writing fan fiction occasionally. And I quite like Souls because it sort of evokes a very strong and poetic sort of sense of writing. And I actually did write it's a work in progress. Half of it's written, but I have this story written about Godfrey conquering Caelid, where Caelid was once the Caelid Wild of the Beastmen and of Eocaid, which was this noble sort of like Scottish inspired concept where it's Godfrey is Rome coming to sort of conquer the free peoples. And I don't know. I really agree with you that the Caelid Wild probably was once this really beautiful and noble place and land before it was sort of unfortunately destroyed. And there's a tragedy there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's awesome as well. I love the your fanfics. That sounds amazing. I'm really happy for you that you do that. It's definitely great to have an artistic outlet like that. That sounds so cool.
Oh, thank you. Uh, I try. I've always been keen on writing and stuff. It's what draws me to the Souls games personally. Hence the name Gideon Half Knowing. It's the lore and the narrative that I really get into. Of course, I like the gameplay too. I'm a fan of action games in general, but
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I must admit, when it comes to the lore, before I started doing this, well, as my career, effectively, it isn't the lore that initially drew me to these games. But the more I'm getting into it, and the more people in the community I'm speaking to, I am starting to become just as interested and just as invested in the lore. as the likes of Smotown and Vartividya and Zuli the Witch and everyone else, all the other great creators that do focus on the lore. So yeah, it's a big draw for me at this point as well, for sure.
I feel like it's one of those things where you start to like learn some breadcrumbs and it just leads you down this
Yes,
rabbit hole.
yes, definitely.
Have you, in your like things you missed videos, do you focus on lore aspects occasionally? I apologize if that's an ignorant question when it comes to like viewing the
No,
videos
no,
themselves.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So I specifically strayed away from it at the start of the series for two main reasons. Firstly, I ignorantly didn't think people would be interested. Um, because I don't know, you kind of without that outside aspect, you just assume like, okay, I like it for the gameplay, so that must be other people's main draw as well. I ignorantly didn't realize how invested in the lore people were. But more importantly and primarily is because I did finish the game so quickly after release, I specifically wanted to stay away from anything that could be construed as a spoiler. And I thought talking about the lore would also start to then move into spoiler territory. But as the series has progressed, it has started to become more fleshed out and more lore heavy as well towards the later episodes.
That makes a lot of sense as like a progression, especially since things were so up in the air speculation wise in the early days of like the lore community.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing, a great conversation I was having with my Twitch chat yesterday actually was whether the Malekith is the same as Gurranq, the beast cleric, clergyman, sorry, in Caelid. Um, and there's so many great arguments for both sides. Because one really key piece of information that people forget is the crumbling Farum Azula is set in a different timeline to the rest of the lands between. So many people say to me, well, he can't be the same because when you kill Malekith, Gurranq is still there. And it's like, yeah, but it's a different timeline. So he could be the same person.
Huh. Yeah, I mean that makes sense as an argument in it. Are you mentioning how like if you kill Gurranq slash Malekith at Farum Azula, you're still able to meet him at the Beast Sanctum? Is that
Yes,
okay?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that discussion before, and I think that's a pretty nice way of explaining it within terms of like narrative timeline sense. Part of me is just wanting to explain it by like it's hard to design games and have him like die because like it doesn't he only show up at the Beast Sanctum if you don't burn the Erde Tree, or does he show up even when the Erde Tree is burning? I can't remember fully. I'm not too like caught up on that aspect of the lore, to be honest.
Gotcha. No, that's what. Yes, I'm pretty sure he is there the whole entire time. What you make a very valid point though about it could just be a gameplay decision. Um, like, like they don't want to. You kill Malekith, therefore he goes away. You're not allowed to use him anymore. Like they're just leaving him there to be nice to the player, so you haven't accidentally locked yourself out of finishing his quest line and handing in the death route. But then another part of me thinks no, FromSoft have got more confidence in their players than that. FromSoft don't hold your hand. They're like, if you mess up, this is your fault.
Yeah, there's a lot of instances where like a quest line can just like end. Like I think
Yeah.
famously Sigmire will just disappear from DS1 if you don't talk to him initially at the gate.
Yes.
Like
At the gates. Yeah. Sense Fortress. Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah, which thankfully doesn't happen as much in Elden Ring. You can miss a couple locations for an NPC and still get along fine. But like it is a good point because Elden Ring is a lot more I guess, attentive with those minor details. So if Gurranq does appear, like, should we read into it as they just didn't want to remove him for the quest? They couldn't remove him because of, like, I guess, random things in the code? Or is it that he is supposed to be there and it's supposed to imply he's different from the Gurranq we see in Farum? But, like, to me, it doesn't make sense for him to not be Malekith. Like, it just looks like his cloak burns away and that there's armor
Yes.
underneath. Like, I don't think it has to be a complicated thing.
No. Of course. Of course. People definitely can and have read into these things too much on a very frequent basis. Um, And to be fair, sometimes it can get a bit heated. Two different viewpoints, but I like to see the good in everyone. And I believe if two people are getting so heated about something, all that means is they are both insanely passionate about the topic they're talking about. I think the conversations wouldn't still be ongoing, and people's passion wouldn't be so well passionate if Elden Ring wasn't such an amazing game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it could be seen as like with the older games, I feel like there was in some ways it was easier to draw a singular conclusion or a singular conclusion with a couple of different endpoints that you could argue about, but like would still be off based off of the same thing. And then Elden Ring is just so broad that people can come from different directions with wholly different sets of evidence where it's like it really does seem like a screaming match when they're just trying to lay it all out. And sometimes it can
Yeah.
turn into that too. I mean, like, heat happens in every discussion, but like,
Yeah.
hopefully not all of them.
No, and it's always coming from a place of love. We wouldn't get so passionate about things we didn't care about.
Exactly. Like, you can't go through all of that and learn about all of it without like being invested in what you're talking about. It's,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah. It's really nice as well to hear that you are a huge fan of Dark Souls as well. Absolutely no shade whatsoever on people who have got into the franchise because of Elden Ring, because I know there's a lot of them, and that's amazing because it means we're growing. Join us, come enjoy Dark Souls with us. But hopefully, it means that a load of the newcomers will now go and also revisit the Dark Souls games because every single one of them, in their own way, is beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's wonderful that Elden Ring has brought so many people into the series, with like 20 million sales numbers. And now that we're like,
Yeah.
yeah, just 1 second. My birds woke up, so can
Oh,
you hear
bless.
them?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now for a message from our sponsors.
Hey, hey you! Whippy whippy wimpy! Are you too much of a milksop to work out? Well, my heart's big! It's got hot blood going through it fast! I like to eat! I like to have children! And you too could slay unworthy tarnished with our one-of-a-kind death root powder! It'll make you big! It'll make you strong! Don't worry about the side effects because you'll be too busy having sex! Bulk up with the vulgar militiamen outside of Beast Sanctum today by calling 1-800-GUREG to train with our master guru. He's huge, he's deadly, and he's manifested the power of death into a fucking sword like holy shit! What people might not realize yet is that it doesn't matter how long you live, it matters how you live, and you want to live with power! Brave the Kalen Wild and visit Gurren and get the Beast Sanctum to get Death Root Powder. Side effects may include unusual changes in behavior, lethargy, complete divorce of cognition from physical sensation, and in some cases, death. I ran out of breath.
And now, back to the episode.
So during our brief interval, then actually, you did mention about night shift work, and there was something I wanted to add to that from my side as well, because I completely agree. Like basically, because so much of my audience are American, I also have basically started working night shifts accidentally. And you're so right. It can really work for you. Basically, my daytime now is my free time. So whilst everyone else is at work, I can go out and get all my stuff done. And it's like, it feels like having the world to yourself. Like if I need to go to the bank or go and do my shopping or whatever, everyone else is at work and it's so peaceful. And it really works for me, basically doing the night shift lifestyle.
Yeah, like in my experience, during the weekdays, generally the only other people out are like families, like the parents of children that are like shepherding them and elderly people, and they are very
Yeah.
unobtrusive and scattered, so it's just nice to be able to have the world to yourself, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
I remember one of my favorite parts of the night shift was night driving. I could go on my break and I could just like drive around for 30 minutes on a completely empty strip of road. And, you had that sort of like almost movie feeling where you've got the flashing lights going by. And
I totally agree. I used to do that all the time. I love it. Yeah, it's so zen. It's so relaxing. It's so peaceful, comforting. You can just go off in your own world for half an hour. It's a very good way to unwind and de-stress.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So since you're you got your so essentially I assume that you went from the YouTube channel into getting a sort of career started with streaming, or was it vice versa? Well, like how did that sort of proceed for you?
Yeah, actually, it was a really good question. If you don't mind me just going off on a little bit of a rant about it. Not a
Please
rant, but
do.
just an extended. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So it was actually the other way round. When I first got into wanting to do content creation, it was around COVID. I found I didn't need to do the commute into the office anymore. So because I had an office-based job, a 9 to 5, and I was at home 24/7. So I now had like these 3 extra hours a day where I didn't have the drive, I didn't have the office politics. I could just do my work, log off, job done. So in the evenings, I was like, I have no purpose anymore. I feel the first few months were great. It was the summer. I was out in the garden having some drinks after work, just like taking the dog on extended walks. And after a while, I thought, I feel so unfulfilled. So I actually, I'm quite a horror fan in my spare time. I love horror movies. I love horror games. So initially, I started up a horror Twitch channel. And it was at that point I realized exactly how niche the horror market is. And I got no exposure whatsoever. So I carried on doing Twitch a little bit on the side, just for me when I had a spare evening. And I also booted up a YouTube channel in tandem. And on that channel, I started reviewing a an open world sandbox medieval strategy game called Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. That started taking off. That was actually doing quite well. So I revisited Twitch and I brought my new YouTube audience back over onto Twitch, and I started playing Bannerlord on stream as well. Um, Inevitably, eventually, I got really burnt out on that game. It wasn't ever my passion. It was just kind of what I was into at the time. And I was like, damn it! Now I feel like I've pigeonholed myself. I'm forced into playing this game that I'm no longer enjoying forever and ever and ever. So I was like, okay, let's take a break. We're back into the office by this point. This is kind of a 2 year period of time I've just explained here. So we're back into the office. I'm back into my 9 to 5 job a bit more again. Office politics, commutes, all of that crap. And so I then took a break from both Twitch and YouTube, and then rolls around Elden Ring. And this is where, if you don't mind if I get into it, I'll talk about. It's not too dark, don't worry. I will still keep it all safe for work, as lighthearted as I can. But if you don't mind me explaining the reason why I got into Elden Ring, then I can round off the story there.
Yeah, go ahead. It sounds like it was an emotional turning point for you.
Y-
So like,
th-
please go into it.
Thank you. Yeah. So basically, yeah, got back into the office. I have suffered with anxiety and depression for many, many years due to truly horrible things I won't go into from my childhood. And I've always lived with them. I've always just pushed them down. Use video games as a nice way to distract me from the realities of life. And basically went back into the office, opened up, wore my heart on my sleeve. I was like, right, I'm ready to take control of my life. I'm ready to look after myself and like get the help I need, speak to a therapist, see if there's any medications I can take. And I thought my team were going to be fully supportive of this, when in reality, what happened is it went the complete other way. And everyone was like, oh, he suffers with mental health issues. That means he's probably not fit to work. And I was immediately treated very differently, which is a heartbreaking thing to learn. But yeah, so basically, I went and spoke to my doctor, and he was so sympathetic. He was absolutely amazing. Signed me off for a few months, and this coincided with the release of Elden Ring. So as I say, I'd quit YouTube, I'd quit Twitch, I'd gone fully back into my career. And then this all blew up in my face. So I was like, okay, Elden Ring's just come out. I'm signed off for a few months while I can tackle all of the stuff going on at work. So let's just dive into Elden Ring, make these videos, and see what happens. And it just exploded.
Oh, that's terrible that you suffered from the stigma against mental health. Like, the stigma itself can be so much more part of the duress that one goes through while suffering, the like anxiety that it just compounds. And I'm sorry that you had to deal with that.
Thank you. Honestly, that means a lot. Thank you so much. It's I mean, clearly I'm now able to do what I enjoy doing for a living, silver linings and all that. It literally could not have gone better in my wildest dreams. Like this really upsetting, really painful situation ended up blossoming into one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And it all stemmed from me being willing to open up about it and go and seek some help. So if that knowledge helps even one other person, that it just makes me so happy to be able to talk about my story now, hopefully help other people.
Of course. I've dealt with depression and anxiety issues all my life. So I've always like, if I were to have any sort of voice within content creation, I would want to define it with being sympathetic and empathetic towards people that are suffering. So I definitely, you know, my heart goes out to everyone who suffers from that kind of thing. And I'm glad that you were able to turn, your dark moment around and like grow out of it in such a way that, you propelled yourself into a new type of career that is obviously something that you enjoy quite a bit and is something that you can be passionate about. And I'm glad that like we can talk about that as an example of hope to people that might also be suffering. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Of course. I've talked to other people that have gotten their start in Elden Ring, off of the success of Elden Ring. There's 20 million people going to YouTube for content off of it. Like Square Table Gaming is a channel that I've had on where Zach and his sort of like family members were able to get together and make their own channel. And even talked to like other people. Like I mentioned Quayleg while we were speaking about YouTube content creators like off recording, and she like she's been around since like early in the days of the Soulsborne series, but she really got like a boost in like what she was putting out from Elden Ring. And I think she's making content with VatiVidya now, which is just like it's nice to see that Elden Ring has pushed so much of the Souls community into the mainstream that we're seeing like an almost like renaissance of like content creation for it. There's so many new voices in the community, and it's nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have put it better myself. I didn't know that about Queelag and Vati, actually. That is amazing. And it's I didn't realize you had Square Table Gaming on either, actually. I only discovered them the other day, and another member of my community was like, "You're the Roundtable, they're the Square Table. You should get together. You should push your tables together and have one giant table."
You see, I was making that joke with Square Table too, because we call ourselves like the Elden Kings of the Round Table Hold, so there's all sorts of tables getting added to the community.
We need to hire out a massive hall and get all our tables together.
The many tabled hold.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be a crossover event that'll shake the world.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see if we can make it happen.
I think something that I think is interesting about Elden Ring, and I mean, if we want like to get into like the sort of narrative aspect of it, I guess it's just that Elden Ring in general, it's a story. It depicts this time of sort of like uncertainty and change, and if you look at like sort of like Japanese mythology or mysticism, there's this concept of like kegare, which is impurity, is what it translates to. And the idea of that is that impurity is a distortion of the natural world. So like you have K, which is like the natural existence, and then when that existence becomes distorted, it becomes kegare, and it must be restored with here. And it's not that this distortion is sinful. Like, it can be caused by humans, but it can be caused by natural events like birth or death. So it's more like, it's not even profane, it's more of a distortion. And it's used to describe, like, obviously periods of heavy uncertainty where the change in the social dynamic of a group or a person's mental balance can be put into question. And I mean, this is a long tangent, so I apologize, but I'm only bringing it up because I feel like if we look at the shattering as the ultimate breaking of K into Kegare, where order becomes distortion and everyone sort of goes mad with their own sort of ideas of what is right and what is not. This is sort of, I've talked about with this with like, content creators on Discord. It's sort of a metaphor for times of change within one's own life, where things are left up to uncertainty, and you can repair your sense of mind with any sort of new mending aspect. Like, obviously the Elden Ring can be repaired, but in multiple ways. And I don't know, I just, like, whenever I talk to people about mental health, I feel like Elden Ring especially can be seen as, I feel like it's one of like it's a struggle to achieve re-achieving cohesion within the self and the world, which I feel like is sort of an analog for that. I forgive me if I'm rambling and this is all a bit like hooky.
No, 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 no. Honestly, I mean, I would be lying if I said I have fully absorbed every single thing you've said, but it's incredibly fascinating. Thank you for sharing. I've been Googling a couple of the words to keep up as you've been going along, and that's super interesting. Thank you. That's awesome.
Oh, of course,
What an
yeah.
analogy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like bring Japanese mysticism. I'm sure not everyone can be
No,
familiar with those terms.
it's super interesting. Thank you.
Of course. So, what other content? I think you said that you stream. So what kind of what are you streaming currently? Would you like to talk about that? Some of your like I guess like what you stream, what you like to stream, how that relates to what you like to play video game wise in general.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, everything. It's all Elden Ring. It's the short answer is Elden Ring. I just love Elden Ring. Because obviously we've got the Things You Missed series, and as I say, that one of the main driving factors for making that was making the game accessible. I was like, hey, look, I'm a guy who has somehow managed to do this as a job, so I've got more time to be able to waste on this game than the average 9 to 5 worker. So let's do all of the grinding and studying and research for you so you can get into the game and enjoy all the juicy stuff. So on that, I wanted to build on that, and then that's where like the build guides and the starter guides started coming from. So I've tried to branch out into various different videos that are basically all centered around helping you play the way that you want to play. I'm a massive advocate for like nothing is like I really don't like the elitist mentality that oh you shouldn't do that, that's making the game, that's cheating, that's cheat. No, no, no. Like you play however is enjoyable, and I'm here to try and help you be able to do that without wasting hours of your life to get to the point where you want to be.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that mindset that everything in the game is meant to be used. Like if you want to
Yeah.
trivialize the game by like using all of the super powerful broken stuff, you're meant to. That's the point.
Yeah. Just like off the back of that, like yeah, I am a huge advocate. Yeah, like as an extension of play the way you want to play. The community that the channel I've created has gathered is honestly such a special, safe, welcoming place. Um, People of like I know it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but genuinely people of all genders, all cultures, all backgrounds. Like I think my Twitch chat is like pretty much 50% male, 50% female, which I've never seen anywhere. Males very much dominate gaming still. And the fact that the more feminine voice is so prominent in my channel, it fills me with joy. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because, like you say, males are definitely like the far more prevalent like demographic still. So that's sort of nice that you've cultivated a welcoming place for people that can just relax and not feel like they're going to be attacked or something.
Yeah. Well, I have more to say, but you were going to say something. Do you still remember? I didn't want to interrupt again.
No, it was just sort of a ramble about general build variety. I'm not sure if it's you can keep going, I imagine.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do that. Let's definitely talk about that. I may well have. Oh, I remember. The last thing I was going to say. So that's the basic gist of what my YouTube videos are all about. And then the Twitch content is still all Elden Ring stuff. But what I like to really do on Twitch is try challenge runs. I love to apply limitations to myself and do really weird, obscure builds. So I am currently in the middle of 2 different runs. I'm doing consumables only and what people call the Pokemon Trainer run. So basically, I'm only allowed to use Spirit Ashes and Summons. I'm not allowed to attack. I'm just there to say, go on, Dung Eater, you can do it.
You're you're a cheerleader rather than a
Yeah.
fighter.
yeah. And both of them runs are going pretty well. So I'll be continuing. I'm not sure exactly when this airs, so apologies if I date it too much. But I'll be continuing on Monday with the Summon Ashes, the Spirit Ashes only run, trying to tackle Malekith. So that's going to be fun.
Well, regardless of when it runs, I'll try to hunt down the run and put it in the description, so anyone that's interested can find it at the very least.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool that I really love the Spirit Ash run especially. The only really challenge run I've done so far is level 1, which I still haven't beaten Gideon the All-Knowing on it, so I'm a bit stumped, so far. But I really like the Spirit Ash run because it's just very. I think it's creative to watch people watch use Spirit Ashes fight, especially when people use, it really showcases the different types of Spirit Ashes you can use. And also how powerful Dung Eater is. He's really
Oh
busted.
my god. Yes. I'm really hoping that if there's enough interest and people want to, that I can take a few snippets, take a few highlights from this challenge run and just be like, right, did you know how powerful this Spirit Ash is? And give genuine examples where, for instance, I literally had the Dung Eater and Iron Fist Alexander solo the Fire Giant. And the 2 of them together, it was like watching this beautiful choreographed dance. They gelled together so well that it was just magnificent to watch. It was so cool.
I never even considered them as a combo, but that's great.
No,
They're both just
yeah.
the ultra tanks.
Yeah, so basically Alex has 2 different attacks that have a crazy long wind up, but they are basically an instant stagger on the Fire Giant. So the Dung Eater's there, getting up in the Fire Giant's face, pulling the aggro, while Alex is just there in the corner, like a character from Dragon Ball Z, charging up the Spirit Bomb for 3 episodes, and eventually he releases it, and the Fire Giant gets staggered, and then the 2 of them just wail on him, and it's a sight to behold.
You're selling me on the Spirit Ash run, I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty great. Are there any other highlights from the run that you've had so far that just stood out to you?
There is a few. There's one that is definitely dipping into the realm of cheese. We basically managed to no-hit Dragon Lord Placidusax with Latenna. She can be a god when she is left unchecked. Oh my god, she's slept on.
Yeah, because she can basically just chill out in a corner of the arena doing consistent DPS as long as she's in range.
Yeah, exactly.
How long is her range? I haven't really used her very much.
I couldn't give you a specifics in yards or feet or meters or anything, but I literally spawned her in at one side of his boss arena, and I'm pretty sure we all know exactly how large Dragon Lord Placidusax's boss arena is, and she can snipe him from the other side of the room.
Absolute queen shit. I adore that.
Yep.
That is so great. I love that. How did Malekith go? I mean, I imagine he's pretty aggressive. Was it just Dung Eater again?
Malekith is the one I am going to attempt to tackle on Monday. He's where I left off when I wrapped up the stream yesterday. I went and did a bunch of extra optional stuff to prepare because I was like, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah, he's a very hard boss.
Yep. And
Some.
then
Oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, talking about how hard he is and how hard some other bosses are, transition perfectly into talking about builds. But was there something else you wanted to say first?
Oh, I mean, really, I was just gonna gush a little about how Malekith is one of the coolest bosses in the game, in my opinion. But like,
It makes me so happy to say. It makes me so happy to hear you say that. Every time someone asks me who is your favorite boss, I do not even need to hesitate. It is Malekith, just because he is glorious. His move set, his armor set, like he just exudes suave. He's so cool.
he is elegant in the best way
Yes,
possible.
yes, 100%, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. He's like Artorias and Manus smushed into one character that is will elegantly slice you in half, and you'll just like love it every time it happens.
Oh my god, what an analogy. Yeah, the move set of Artorias, but the kind of look and style of Manus. I love that.
Hmm. It's even within the lore Elden Ring, Destined to Death is basically the Dark Soul, and since Malekith is the vessel of the Dark Soul of Destined Death, he and Artorias and Manus are all about that. And on top of that, he's like a great warrior that's now corrupted. You know, there's all sorts of just endless analogs between the two of them.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. I love that. And I really hope, I don't know if it's not really FromSoft's style to ever be obvious and linear about anything. But I love the analogy that each of the different Elden Ring endings could potentially be like a prequel to each of the different Dark Souls games.
Yeah, I've heard those before. I think it's like I don't think most of that's like, intended, quote unquote, but it is so fun to just like speculate in like a cute way about like how things could potentially tie into each other.
Yeah, yeah, like you say, it's a bit of a stretch. Some of them make a lot of sense, but others, people really do need to be a bit loose with the thinking, don't they?
Potentially, because it's, there's a bit of, there's some reaches that might leave you like with a extended arm, so to say.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like there are definitely analogs. Like all of those pillars in the Elden Beast boss fight are basically the arch trees from DS1, which are seen again in the Bloodborne Hunter's Dream, which is within a higher plane, the same way that the Elden Beast is. And I mean, like, Bloodborne has the Demon Souls Boletaria armor in it, and it used to be more connected to Demon Souls with the idea of like, like the Great One Souls, and there's all sorts of weird stretches and connections going on between
Wow.
these games.
Yeah, so many connections. And obviously a more fair, a more obvious one, and not necessarily connected in any way to the lore. Just FromSoft love putting it in their games. The Moonlight Greatsword.
Oh, 100%. And patches, patches in the
Yes.
Moonlight Greatsword.
Oh, the first time I had an encounter with patches in Bloodborne, I mean, I used to be terrified of spiders. Why stick his head on a massive spider FromSoft? Why do that to us? That is just mean.
It's very cruel.
Like, as if you couldn't make patches any more annoying. Now you've turned him into a spider.
Like, really, that first game, I really was walking through it expecting to find, like, some London, like, cutthroat, like, AA cut type thug Patches guy, but then we meet Spider Patches, and I'm not sure if, like, it was a bit of a surprise.
Definitely. Oh, I like that would have been a great character idea though. I could totally see him being that style patches that you just described. That would have fit really well as well, wouldn't it? I like that.
Yeah, I think it really fit the sort of like skeevy personality. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
you've seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I imagine a sort of less moralistic Speedwagon would be a good way of describing Patches.
You know what? I have seen a few episodes of JoJo. I started watching it, and I was so confused and terrified at what I was watching. I was like, "What is happening? What is this program?" But I do really want to go back and watch it. I've heard from so many anime fans that it is glorious.
Yeah, it's one of those animes that really it really the word bizarre is not lying in the title. It is.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Like, I guess if I could sum it up best, the first two seasons are this wacky hijinks Castlevania type buff men fighting vampires using the power of sunlight kung fu, which I sort of adore in terms of how wacky that is and just how over explained it is. Like, it's just fun. The after that it gets more into like it sort of becomes indescribable. Like by the fourth or fifth season, the one of the main like the primary villains, spoilers I guess, but like he gets trapped in an endless time loop where he infinite like suffers infinite deaths cut off from the rest of the universe for eternity. Like that's what someone
Oh,
does to him.
wow.
Yeah, like it's a bit over the top. But yeah.
Damn, that's wow. You gotta feel, even if he is the main villain, you gotta feel bad for him at that point.
Yeah, there's a bit of pity involved with that kind of ad. He was a bit monstrous, though. Very
Yeah.
monstrous.
You know what? The amount of memes and references and clips and gifs, like as soon as you said it, I thought, yeah, I know that name. Yeah, like all these characters are ringing a bell. I need to go and watch it. I just do.
Yes, and I apologize. I mean, like, I guess it's a cheesy action thing, so to me, spoilers aren't the
Yeah.
most important, but you know, I mean.
I mean,
Um,
anyone who hasn't watched it by this point, it's your own fault, myself included.
okay, well, I'm glad that you can come at it with that mindset.
Yeah.
So let's get into the build variety. Like you were talking about how you try to make it so that anyone can play the way they want, but you want to like lessen the work that it takes. You know, the wiki hunting for all of the best weapons and stuff that fit that flavor is what I assume you mean. Or like, what do
Yeah.
you? What are those videos looking like?
I mean, yeah, no, I couldn't have put it better myself. That's exactly it. Just continuing on with the theme of helping people enjoy this game as much as they can. I just want to find um, the best builds. And when I say best, people's interpretation of the word best can vary massively. Some people want the most overpowered build. Some people want the most stylish build. Some people want the most up-to-date build when it comes to the patches. And I try to cover all bases. For me, video games are all about having fun. So if I find a new, fun, wacky combo, the first thing I want to do is share that with the world. And the majority of that video will be like, right, how can you access all of this stuff? How can you get it? And how can you put it together as quickly and as effortlessly as possible? So yeah, that really is it in a nutshell. But with the amount of crazy awesome builds I found recently, I could waffle on about this topic for hours.
Okay, I mean, we might not have hours to get
No.
into it, but I'd love to know. I'd love to hear a couple of these builds that what are the highlights? You know, let's get into it a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Um, you know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to look at my own YouTube channel. It's so funny. It's so funny, actually. I'll give you a sneak peek behind the scenes here. The amount of times I have to go and reference my own channel because I forget things, and I'm like, if only someone made a Things You Missed series about all the things I might have forgotten.
Maybe you should make a Things You Missed about the Things You Missed series once you've finished it out.
It isn't the first time it's been suggested. But yeah, I do. It's almost as if my YouTube channel is just one giant notepad document for me for all the things I'm inevitably gonna forget again.
Honestly, I get that. Part of the reason I get into the lore is because I'm like, gosh, I've made some like really sort of overcomplicated feeling connections here. I'm gonna forget these by the time I go to sleep if I don't like write this down or something, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm just having a look through now at some of the recent ones that I've done. Because every time, as I say, every time I discover a new one, I'm like, okay, I really want to share that with the world. Um, and with the constant, I say constant patches, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean FromSoft are so good at updating their game, fixing bugs, tweaking things. So what's good is always changing from week to week and month to month. Um, but there's Great Axes got a huge buff in the most recent patch a couple of weeks ago. I think they received 3 different buffs to like their animation speed, their scaling, their affinity. So any build containing Great Axes at the moment is just wrecking face.
I did not know that. I'm gonna have to update my my co-op build where I help people out to use great axes.
Love that idea.
Yeah, like I'm glad that they got updated because great swords were definitely the more powerful variant from what I had experienced. Like they generally even just flat out beat great axes in scaling, if not in like the moveset speed.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you've just said that as well. Actually, there's another couple of people I know that do that, who have a co-op build so that they can just go and help people who are struggling on some of the tougher bosses. It's crazy. Well, no, maybe crazy is not the right word. What am I trying to say here? Basically, like Elden Ring is arguably the most accessible of all of the From Software Souls-like games. But at the end of the day, at its core, it is still a Souls game. So to veterans like the two of us, we have and I'm not pretending to be a really good player, but basically what I'm saying is just with the amount of experience we have, eventually you start to learn the games well enough that you're like, okay, like this is a tough boss, but I've beaten them before. I know what builds to use. I know their move set, stuff like that. And new people that are just getting into the franchise, there are some really intimidating bosses. So hearing that you have a character that you use to go on co-op with and help people out, that's so awesome. That's really cool.
Aw, thank you. And like that is pretty much my mindset exactly. Like I love these games a lot, and I really love defending the difficulty of the games because I think it's fitting for tonality and gameplay fun. And like part of that defense even go extends into like the Elden Beast, who is very often hated on for being as hard as it is. But like for me, I'm like, the final boss should be hard. You should have to sit back and think about the game that you just played before you beat it, which like I love, but I also love helping people get past it. Like, so many people suffer from these games, and there is such a fun thing about going in and just helping someone, and like, you know, like and it just becomes such a battle in Elden Ring where I really love like the combat of it, and I love helping people, and honestly, I just do it when I listen to audiobooks or podcasts because I have to do something with my hands or I'll get antsy,
Yeah.
but
You've got a great mentality. I had a big smile on my face as you were saying that then. I love that. Like you say about defending the difficulty of the game without being elitist about it. 100%. Like I quite often, every time, of course you're going to get trolls on the internet. Of course, it's the internet. What else would you expect? But every time Elden Ring tweet, at least a handful of people are like, do an easy mode, do an easy mode. I'm like, no, no, no. And that's not me saying being one of these people like, oh, get good, scrub. They also I don't need to exist. But there's a nice middle ground, and you've nailed it. Like defending the difficulty, it's really good. How you just described it is so much better than how I can describe it. I can't remember word for word what you just said, but it was beautifully described. That it's needed to add to the game, but then we're here to help people that are struggling with them bits.
yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that you agree and like and you can appreciate the mindset because I think it's like I think it's the most fun way to approach the games, you know, like they have their built-in easy modes of getting past it, but some of those are obscure, and one of the simplest ones is co-op, so like it's best to help people out in that sphere, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's and I just like I think the biggest thing, I mean, not to get into the Dark Souls easy mode arguments, I guess, but I think one of the best parts of the Soulsborne series and From Software games is that if you compare them to some of their like contemporaries or derivatives, like Neo, for instance, which isn't fully
Yeah.
derivative, but like Neo is hard. Like it's really hard. Neo, Monster Hunter, Blasphemous, all of those games are like hard to the point where you really have to learn how to beat them or you won't. But with Dark Souls and then From Software games, I think one of the cool parts of them is that you can sort of stumble your way through the game and still have a lot of fun. Like if you find a really powerful weapon, if you look up a really powerful weapon, if you get help from someone to get past the checkpoint you wouldn't normally get past, all of those are such valid ways of experiencing the game, which make it easier than like a lot of its contemporaries and like the sort of pinnacle of action genre type thing. I guess in my opinion,
Yeah.
at least.
Oh, I couldn't, honestly, I couldn't agree more. And I love what you said about the Elden Beast as well. It's crazy the amount of people that join either in the YouTube comments or in the Twitch chat or on my Discord, wherever I'm chatting to people. The amount of people who are like, I got to Radagon and the Elden Beast like 2 months ago, and I haven't touched the game since then. They're like, I got stuck and I didn't go back to it. And in a way, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that they never finished the game because that magic is still alive. They haven't yet have had to experience the sadness of having the credits rolling and being like, "Oh, it's over. Why is it over?"
Yeah, exactly. And I think like in a way that experience is valid in and of itself because it's like it's representative of what the Elden Beast does. But the fact that they can still go back to it after all this time is another part of the experience. The fact that the boss is still there tantalizing them to return and finish it out.
Yes.
It's I guess not to go on a diatribe, but like I really like how these games are made to be simple. Like I feel like Sekiro, which is one of sort of famous for being hard in a way that people aren't used to, is like even that game, if you know how to use the shinobi tools, you can get past it. Like I have this let's play for it because it's my favorite game and I wanted to make something, even though I don't really have a bunch of like YouTube viewers, obviously. But like in it, I really wanted to show off how you could use the shinobi tools to really trivialize most fights and not have to worry about them. And like because of my game knowledge of that, I didn't die to a boss until I fought the Demon of Hatred, which is just like it's cool that you can like achieve that level of gameplay. But like I'm speaking from I guess our veteran experience where like I don't have to worry about the deflections so much. But like if you
Yeah.
just block, you don't have to worry about them either, which is part of what I try to reinforce. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm genuinely happy that you just went off with that tangent because I'm gonna out myself as the scrub I am now and say I have still not beaten Sekiro. And knowing that you have that series, I now really want to go check it out. So I would actually be very grateful for a link to your channel so I can have you teach me and help me get through Sekiro.
Aw, okay. Yeah, I'll link it. I tried to be a bit better with that. Like, I'm still pretty new to this, and I've got, like, not the best equipment or, like, sound room areas to stream in. So, like, sometimes there's, like, a little bit of audio imbalance. But I think overall, it's my favorite thing I've posted gameplay-wise over there. And it's my favorite game. I would love to try and help other people get through it, you included. Imagine if you made a Things You Missed of Sakura video series.
Yeah. That's so cool, though. I'm very impressed. Well done, because it is their toughest game for sure, and I think it's because on the complete flip side to Elden Ring offers so many optional mechanics that will lower the difficulty. The fact that it's open world means that if you're struggling on Stormvale Castle, well, just skip it. If you're struggling in Leonia, oh, just skip it. Like you can get to really, really late game areas without ever attacking an enemy. And likewise, you've got summons, you've got spirit ashes, you've got NPCs, you've got so many tools that will help you and will kind of virtually reduce the difficulty. Whereas Sekiro, there are some, but it's the most limited. It's like you need to eventually learn how to parry well. You need to learn how to Makiri counter. You need to learn how to use your tools. I think that one challenges you a lot more.
Absolutely. It's like It's the one Souls game where if you don't learn your kit, the core mechanics of your kit and how to utilize them, you cannot beat it. But like if
Yeah.
you learn the core mechanics of your kit and how to use the higher mechanics of your kit to trivialize stuff, you can beat it. But like there's a higher skill floor. You know, it's like you have to roll in every Dark Souls game, but you can usually block, and it's like if you mess up the rolls, it doesn't matter so much as long as you can do them like 30% of the time. But like Sekiro, you can't get away with that. You
No,
know?
oh, exactly, 100%. I mean, I still remember um, the attempt when I finally managed to defeat Lady Butterfly. At that point in the game, I still hadn't learned how to parry properly, so I was literally just running circles around the edge of her arena, just very occasionally managing to throw a knife in her direction, and it was the most painfully excruciating experience.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really interesting beginning set of bosses you fight in Sekiro because all of them teach such different experiences intentionally. Like it's if you go through the intro portion, you start in the Ashina outskirts and you fight your way to the ogre, and the ogre is supposed to be hard enough that you go back and you go to the Hirata estate. And then once you do the Hirata estate, you're either going to beat Lady Butterfly or you're going to go back and continue towards Gyobu. Um, but what's so cool about it is that through that experience, you learn how to use the shinobi tools. Like in the Hirata estate, you get the axe and use it against the shields, but you also get the flame event, which since you fought the ogre already, you'll go back and use it against the ogre. At least that's what's intended. I mean, that goes over some that it's easy to miss that in the swarm of getting killed all the time. But I love that. I love that that culminated in Lady Butterfly because she is, in my opinion, like she's a hard tutorial boss, especially if you haven't killed Gyobu and you don't have that attack power boost, and if you can't
Yeah,
parry her, like she has a pretty hard to knock down posture bar, and she parries most things if you're just attacking willy nilly. Like it can be a
yeah.
tough boss.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really good point, actually. Again, with the contrast to Elden Ring, the fact that if you are stuck on a boss, you don't just have to rely on quote unquote getting good. You can go and level up. You have other areas. Whereas with Sekiro, your leveling up is tied behind bosses and mini bosses. You need to level up your stats through acquiring the correct item to do so. You can't just go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting is that I feel like Elden Ring almost captures that vibe in the end game, which I think is part of why it's so famously hated, because you can go through Elden Ring
Yeah. The
following
boss
that
rush.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have the exploration mindset of the early game. If you get stuck, go somewhere else. If you need power, there is plenty to get. But then by the end of the game, it's just the gauntlet ahead of you. And this is the end
Yeah.
game gauntlet where everything's scaled. So like you can sort of like stumble your way into being overpowered on account of levels and upgrades, but you have to know the combos. You need game knowledge to get ahead of like the end game, which is just a really interesting sort of vibe.
Yes. Yeah. And for that exact reason, I've got a very love-hate relationship with the last few bosses because you think to yourself when you unlock the capital of Ash, you're like, oh, I've still got three main bosses left. I've got to go face Gideon, I've got to go face Godric slash Horalu, and then I've got to go face Radabeast. But in reality, it's literally just one after the other. It's just a straight route. You're pretty much done with the game by that point. And I'm heartbroken that the end of such a beautifully open world game is so linear and over so quick.
I can understand that mindset and I sort of empathize with it. But part of me, I guess this is coming from somewhat of a subjective taste of someone that likes the narrative more. Like, I like narratively linear games more than I like open world games. So maybe that's why I have this really, like, because I sort of love that it ends that way. It's like the exploration is over, and now, like, if you look at Rykard as an analogy, he went and killed a bunch of people. He became a recusant because he needed greed to gain power. And once he
Yeah,
had the power, he would challenge the gods. It's like you've gone and you've gathered your power. Now it's time to challenge the gods to take the mantle of Elden Lord from Radagon.
I like that thinking. I'm going to use that line of thinking because that's a really nice way of looking at it, honestly. And to be fair, for the most part, I do also prefer linear games. I love the storytelling of games. I want to get really invested in games, and it's to that end that I am not a huge fan of games without any story or games that are entirely open world. I mean, no disrespect to people that love, for instance, crafting survival games. But if you are going to play something like Rust or Minecraft or Sons of the Forest, they don't appeal to me. I like the story. I like the journey. Whereas with them, you just kind of get plonked down in the game world and they just go, off you go then. I'm like, no, give me a story.
Yeah, I share that mindset. I really like I guess I'm a fan of crafting in survival games in certain cases. Like the classics of Minecraft and Terraria are cool. And I played Valheim when it came out, but like I've never been able to get that deep into them outside of like the sheer gameplay, statistics, satisfaction, because there isn't, like you say, there's not, you just plop down and you go do what you do. So you really need a good gameplay progression and something like that
Yeah.
will really mechanically grab someone to have that game work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, like maybe Minecraft was a bad example because to be fair, Minecraft is still very fun to this day. It's such a different type of fun. You've really got to be in the mood for it. Um, like, oh, I really want to build this structure, but for me, that's kind of where it starts and ends. Like you were saying, the storytelling of FromSoft's games, even though it is famously not spoon fed to you, it is still when you delve into it and when you learn it, it's very very beautifully done.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really like it. I remember I was one of those people that was valiantly fighting on the side of Elden Ring having better narrative than God of War Ragnarok. Like, just because I think that it's like not to bring such a controversial debate into it. My apologies. But I just thought it was like a good example because like I do think that Elden Ring, with its large capacity of lore and narrative and storytelling, that sort of harkens back to a lot of such like very human stories and mythologies. It does like it's sort of something phenomenal that like I don't think we've seen before within gaming, even before in like the other games, even if they've had their own lore, which is part of why I brought up the Ragnarok comparison, just because while I like God of War Ragnarok and it has a good story, especially in like all of the intro bits with like really good storytelling devices, it's like it's just a well-crafted story. It's like a really high-budget movie compared to like something that's like really heartful, which like God of War Ragnarok is also heartful. Like it has a bunch like I remember that yeah, rambles.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I also am an advocate for Elden Ring over Ragnarok. For sure, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. I'm not meaning to crap on anyone who does love God of War. In fact, God of War 2018 or whenever the previous one came out, absolutely fantastic. Ragnarok, I didn't gel with as much. I didn't get on with as much. Maybe it's because I'd already been completely swooned and won over by Elden Ring. That when I played Ragnarok, and I was like, yeah, it's good, but it's not Elden Ring.
I totally understand that mindset. I liked 2018. I think you're right that it was the year it released. I actually teared up during the end. Like that had a really heartfelt narrative, even if like the whole
Yes.
Atreus turning evil was a bit bleh, but like it was a really good narrative, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
So, is there anything else you'd like to get into while you're here today?
I'm just having a think about that myself. I'm sure I could ramble for hours. I'm scrolling through my channel for inspiration on other interesting topics of conversation because there's so much I want to talk about. But I want to keep it relevant. I want to keep it fun and interesting for the audience. I'm just thinking, is there any things you missed behind the scenes, secrets I could give to people? Oh, here's a fun one that I shared on stream the other day, actually, because again, most people will know me because of the Things You Missed series. That's obviously finished now, because that can only go on for as long as the game is. So the more recent videos are build guides, strategies for bosses, how to start the game, stuff like that. But because most people will know the Things You Missed series, um, this is probably going to sound like most people's idea of hell. But to make sure that I combed every area as thoroughly as possible, um, I literally, obviously, on the map you can place down 5 markers. I would literally like mentally section off an area in my head, say like southeast Limgrave, and I'd put down 5 markers in like a zigzag line, and I would go and hit marker 1, marker 2, marker 3, marker 4, marker 5. Right, did I find any items? Okay, no. Like, that bit's done. Now let's move on to like southwest, right? Marker 1, marker 2, and I combed every single area like that. And that is how the Things You Missed videos are so thorough. Even then, I still managed to miss a few things. I'll hold my hands up. But yeah, that's how I managed to capture most things.
That is tactical, like that's
Yeah.
yeah, I like that attention to detail with it. You're going all in on the research.
100%. Like I said, I just wanted to make the game as accessible as I could for people that didn't have that kind of time. And I guess because I was so focused on making sure that, like, right, I want to make sure that you're able to grab every single item, find every single boss, all that stuff. That's why I was kind of blinded to the lore in my first playthrough, because I was so tunnel visioned, I was so pigeonholed into making sure I found all the actual gameplay mechanical in-game secrets for people, that I myself was kind of taken out of appreciating the world as much as I could. During my second playthrough, I was going around and I was like, wow, was this giant painting here in Stormvale before? This is beautiful. And I wasn't able to appreciate how stunning all the environments were, and notice all of these little lore details, because I was so tunnel vision into finding every single item.
I can get how that mindset would develop, but I am happy to hear that you've been able to go back and appreciate like some of the finer details of the game too.
Yeah, me too.
I remember my first playthrough, I was I don't know, I just had a lot of fun going around and trying to investigate things. Like when I always do my playthroughs blind, so I didn't even figure out the whole map system at first. So I was literally like following roads between different castles to attack them, and like researching lore as best I can. And like, I journal as part of like I guess mental health thing, going back to like earlier in the episode. And part of the journaling at the time was like Elden Ring theories. It's pretty funny.
That's amazing, though. I love that. That's really cool that you do that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
One thing I only just noticed myself the other day, actually, a tiny, tiny little piece of lore information that a bunch of people probably already know. But again, because I was so focused on the gameplay, I didn't think of the lore connotations behind what I'm about to say. And it's the fact that Iron Fist Alexander, or Alexander the Great Jar, whatever title you wanna call him by, is resistant but not invulnerable to fire before a certain point in the game. However, after you help him defeat Radahn, and you then see him tempering himself in the fires of Volcano Manor, from that point of the game moving forward, he is now immune to fire damage, because he's been tempered in the fires of Volcano Manor. So he is immune to the fire giant's attacks, and if you try and use any kind of fire damage on him when you're facing him in the Crumbling Farum Azula, again, he's fully resistant.
Wow, like I never knew that either. Even today, there's just so many new things to learn about the game. That's awesome.
It makes me so giddy that I'm still finding out stuff like this. Like, I'm sure there are going to be people out there that are going to eye roll when they listen to this podcast, like, oh my God, Dom, you've only just figured that out. But that's the beauty of it being so massive, is that we're all gonna, unless you are watching every single video from every single lore YouTuber, there's gonna be a few pieces of lore like that. You're still only today making the connections, and it makes me so giddy. When I found it out on stream, I was like, oh my god, this is why Alex is now immune to fire damage, because of this and this and this. And I was like, that's so cool that that's a fact that exists in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there are so many minor details, and even if everything might get figured out at some point, I don't think we're even close to that even now, and probably won't be for a while. Like, there's still, like, even one person can't figure out all of that stuff just by, like, there's so many different places to consume it at, and so many, like, it's just wonderful how like those secrets will persist and like spread throughout the community as they appear about the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're so correct, aren't you? Like it is going to be a long time before every single thing has been found out, and before that happens, we'll have the expansion and we'll be doing it all over again.
And I cannot wait for one. I am so excited.
I know, right? I'm so what's the word? Like in anticipation, wanting to find out who is going to be delved into, whose story is going to be fleshed out. Like I seriously hope and believe that Mikola will be involved heavily. But that's about all I can really speculate for sure at the moment. The rest of it is just me hoping and dreaming.
I mean, like 100%. Like, like Mikola's been the sleeper in cut content and in like game hints like for so long that like everyone was hoping for Mikola DLC. So they just pretty much confirmed it basically with him writing torrents, unless you're into like the
Yes.
him he is America theory. But like, gosh, I woke up the day that it came out. I immediately made this like 14 tweet long thread just like talking about all of like the things it could be referencing, and then made a
No
40-minute video the next
way. That's amazing.
Yeah. Just like I was very excited. I have so many ideas about it. It is
I just I really, I know it's very very likely that it is going to come out either at the very end of this year or Q1 next year, because of Armored Core and because of how the timelines fit. But I'm still praying. I'm still praying and hoping it's going to be sooner. I personally think that the expansion will be before Christmas. I think it will be before the holiday season, because I think that will be a great time for them to build up hype for it. Everyone's like parents buying it for their kids and friends buying it for friends and stuff like that. So, because that still gives Armored Core a few months in the spotlight. So I'm hoping it's going to be by the end of this year, even though I know a lot of people think it will be the start of next year.
I would share your opinion, and some may call that copium, but I
Yes, copium.
I know. I'm wishing. I'm in the got my hands together, please.
Right. Only a few more months, if so.
Yeah. I mean, at least we'll have Armored Core, though. I'm sure there'll be a good amount of time I'll be sinking into that when it comes out.
Have you played any of the other Armored Cores?
I haven't, sadly. Like, I've emulated Armored Core 5, but it didn't run well enough for me to, like, pursue the game. I'm probably gonna try emulating one of the earlier titles at some point, but we shall see. I haven't had the pleasure of playing it so far, though, like, in any in-depth way. I do really like the mech combat of what I tried.
Cool.
Have you?
No, I must admit, but it didn't, because it's a very very different game franchise to Elden Ring, and it didn't appeal to me. Graphically, I think they look very cool. They're interesting games to look at, but it wasn't the gameplay that I would usually go for. And I think I'm a tad concerned that some of FromSoft's newer fans and some people who've jumped in with Elden Ring are just automatically assuming that Armored Core is going to be like robot Elden Ring. And I know there's a few times that From Software have issued statements saying, please don't think that it's going to be robot Elden Ring. It's going to be nothing like it. It is taking no notes from Dark Souls. It is taking no notes from Elden Ring. It's entirely its own thing to try and mitigate like letting people down. And that's not to say that the game itself isn't going to be awesome. It's just if people accidentally start to try and make comparisons, they may be like, oh, this isn't what I expected. So yeah, I will probably give it a go anyway, but I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, I feel like that was sort of like a discussion or a debacle, depending on how you want to call it, on Twitter
Yeah.
or whatever, shortly after the release. And I think like there are like it's fair to say that there's probably going to be people that go into AC6 expecting Elden Ring, and they're going to be
Yeah.
just disappointed or like not have it the way they want it. Because like if I'm going to be honest, people went into Sekiro and went into Elden Ring expecting Dark Souls 3, and they didn't get it, and people hate on both of those games for that reason to an extent. So like, you know, within the series itself, it happens. It's definitely going to happen between like developer series titles that have different gameplay distinctions.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I am hopeful though, because like I think that Armored Core 6, there was like this lengthy interview that came out between Miyazaki, and like the sort of junior head that was like really important in Sekiro and has been like getting more status since I think Dark Souls 3 and into Elden Ring. And he was sort of given the reins on Armored Core 6, like Miyazaki was only in the pre-production of it, helping set up. And since like one of the big things of Sekiro is the posture bar and how it relates to disabling someone so you can move in melee combat to like do a lethal blow. And within the interview that came out alongside the announcement and the trailer, he sort of mentioned how melee combat had a higher focus in Armored Core 6 and how he had taken a lot of like direction from Sekiro. So like I guess personally, I am expecting something that people that like the Soul series for its action melee might be able to interact with, but simply because it's going to probably have sort of like new types of dodging and shields and ways to get in close. But I think that no matter what, there'll probably be some sort of preferred emphasis on melee and guns. Like even within Elden Ring, the best combo you can do is like spell sword. Like if you have mid range on top of close range, you are so much more powerful.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool to know, though. I didn't know that about the lead from Sekiro being given the reins with Armored Core as well. And the focus on melee combat, everything you were talking about, that sounds amazing. I'll have to keep my ears and eyes peeled then.
Yeah, I'll link you the article if you're interested, like the interview. I'll link it down below if any listeners are interested as well.
Sweet.
Not
Yeah.
not to go on like a history lecture. I'm sorry, that was a pretty long rant.
No, it wasn't. You're fine.
Okay, so I guess I mean, you know, you're always getting asked about favorites. Would you like to clarify some of your personal favorite weapons, spells, or builds in general when it comes to playing Elden Ring yourself?
I'd love to, of course. I've got a few that are way more defined and obvious and easy for me to answer than others. As I said earlier, I think we can both agree that one of the most badass bosses in the game is Malekith. He is so stylish. You just want to be his friend. He's so cool. Like you would feel so badass walking beside him. Like, yeah, he's my friend. Look how cool he is.
I completely agree.
When it comes to weapons, obviously, depending on the build, I've got a few favorites. But I'd say overall, I adore the Blasphemous Blade. I think it's so stylish. The fact that it's got all of the Rykard's like little grasping tentacly things all over the blade, like remnants of him are still gripping to the blade. That detail is so cool. And obviously, the weapon itself is one of the strongest weapons in the game.
Oh, absolutely. It is destructive with its Ash of War, super cool in its visual design. And like, don't they continue to writhe while you walk around?
Yes, they do. I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is purely a pipe dream, but talking about the expansion and talking about lore, as I said, their DLCs famously go into the past. I would love if we could go far enough into the past that we could meet Rykard and acquire the unblasphemous version of the blade as an actual usable weapon.
That would be pretty sick, because it'd basically be like a personal claymore wielded by Rykard and probably
Yeah,
personally forged. That'd be awesome to see what it looked like before.
it'd be so cool, right?
I'm really excited. I mean, no matter what we get, like, I have my personal theory is that I'm really hoping to get something to do with Godwin. I think there's a distinct possibility that you mentioned the past, and for a long time I was an advocate for it being about going to the past. I really wanted to get like a Ashen Dragon Mistheart thing from Dark Souls 2 to like do different checkpoint levels or something with, but like
Oh, yeah, nice.
yeah, I think that was a bit of a pipe dream because at this point I'm sort of sold on the afterlife theory. I really want to see like the soul of Godwin in the afterlife or something.
Okay, I like that idea. Yeah, that'd also be awesome. Um, you may be able to answer a question I've got actually about a particular thing in a particular area. I don't know if there is a defined answer for what this is, but when you are down in the bottom of Stormvale Castle, and just after you face the ulcerated tree spirit, what is that giant face in the ground there?
So yeah, that's the face of Godwin. That has I used to think that so it's funny because I actually had a personal theory about this, and I was convinced by other people online after a while with like discussion. But essentially, my original thought was that this is where Godwin the Golden died, and that they carved his face off as like a sacrificial way to destroy his soul and identity, which is complete crackpot headcanon. But what I what I learned was that essentially Godwin is the Prince of Death and the martyr to undeath because he was the first demigod to die. Essentially the death root and the shards of death that spread throughout reality from his corpse being planted at the roots of the great tree, which may be the Yerda tree, may not be. It spreads through the world, and because it's impacted by Godwin's identity, his face spreads within the death root. So if you look at those like big death root clumps, I'm fairly certain you can see his face in them. And it's why you get those like visages of undeath, like the cysts. There's like the cyst and the pustule. You find one of them
Yes,
on
yeah.
that face. Yeah. So it's assumed that the face has grown there because as like an extension of Godwin's death, undeath, living within death, death root spreading throughout the land.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to go and have a close look at them areas now and see if I can also see what people say it like appears to be his face showing up in the death route and that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I've always been a little bit mediocre with visual analysis. I'm not sure what it is about my eyes and seeing things, but I have learned to trust people when they say that you can see his face in the death route and in other like
Mhm.
examples of it. And what's
That's
interesting
awesome.
is that even if you don't think that it's you know Roger, how he sort of dies in the Roundtable hold?
Yes.
So he dies because of corruption from the death root. And he
Yeah.
gets corrupted because while he's at Stormvale Castle, he's looking for Deathroot. He's looking for signs of Godwin's undeath because he's trying to uncover the secret behind Deathroot and the Knight of the Black Knives. And
Yes.
he goes to that Visage, like he sneaks past the ulcerated tree spirit that you kill. And the reason you only get the cyst is because I think it used to have Deathroot in it, and that Roger took the Deathroot, like he pulled it, but he left the cyst behind, which the player is then able to take and use as a talisman.
Oh, right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So like the fact that the cyst references Godwin, I think speaks to how the Deathroot grows from uh pustules of his identity, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel I like to say things, but like I feel like if I say stuff on like a recording or a stream, like for like my podcast or my streams or whatever, it should always be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt because I do believe in doing research and confirming things with textual evidence.
Honestly, I feel that. I feel that the second you say something online, that is it. That's gospel, and someone is going to scrutinize you for it.
Oh yeah.
And that, I'm not saying at all that I don't enjoy doing the YouTube videos, and I'm not grateful for the 126,000 subscribers and the 21 million views. But that is why I do tend to feel more comfortable on Twitch than on YouTube. Because if I'm like right now, like as we're having a discussion, sometimes it's very easy in the moment to accidentally misphrase something. And if I accidentally misphrase something on a YouTube video, that's gospel, and people will rip me a new one for that. And it could purely just be a slip of the tongue or like accidentally misremembering something. Whereas when it's in a more live format like this or on Twitch, it's easier to correct yourself and be like, oh, whoops, I literally just accidentally said the wrong thing there. But when it's embedded on that YouTube video, it's very hard. Like you can write in the comments, you can say, "Oh, sorry, misspoke here," but no one's going to read that, and that's forever going to tarnish your reputation. Just a tiny little smidge, and it's heartbreaking. It's tough. It's a tough business.
Yeah, it can be harsh with audiences.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I'm a strong believer in the post-reverence era where everyone can make mistakes and no one is perfect.
Yeah, 100%. And I get countless comments every day of people saying, "I'm so happy that you tend to leave in your mistakes on videos because, like you say, no one is perfect." And again, harkening back to what I said right at the start about wanting to make this game accessible to everyone, if I was to do what some people do, I will not name any names because it's just bad form, but occasionally you will see people that seem to play perfect. And you can almost guarantee it's because they've cut out all the footage of them not playing perfectly. And they do it because it makes them look better. And there is an argument for doing that. That's fine. But you're distancing yourself from a real player and a real experience. I like to leave in my failures and my fumbles because it's more realistic, it's more approachable. People know, oh, well, if this guy can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes for more entertaining content too. Like it's not so fun to watch someone always win. Like I think it's sort of cool when you see fumbles and you see mistakes because sometimes it's good to learn from them and to understand
Yeah,
what happened, you know?
yeah, definitely.
And I mean, there is a time and place for like that sort of demonstration of perfect play. Like, I don't know if you've seen Ang Ball on YouTube, but I sort of
Oh
like,
my God.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. But that's an exception. Obviously every like we were just talking about, like um sometimes you can say something and it doesn't come out quite how you mean. So yeah, that's a great example of where it is good to have perfection, but it's because that person has spent countless hours perfecting that. It's not like they've pretended to just stroll in to Melania and that was their first ever attempt. Like, it's a very good player. They've spent hours and hours practicing, and that's the culmination of all their practice, as opposed to try and trick you into thinking that they're just better than you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the age old. If you're having a discussion in an online forum and someone chimes in with saying they beat the boss on their first try, it's like, I mean, that's great, cool, but like, it's not, it doesn't have a bunch of, it doesn't really matter, does it? You know? Like,
No.
like,
Um,
it's cool, but
yeah, yeah. As we were talking about Sekiro earlier and how much better at it you are than I am, have have you played Wolong?
yes, yes, you made a video on that, didn't you?
Yes. Love that. And I'm trying to convince myself that because I managed to get good with the parrying system in Wolong, that Sekiro hopefully will be less of a daunting experience for me now when I do go back to it.
Oh my god, absolutely. Like, you beat Guan Yu in Wolong, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't beaten the game yet, but Guan Yu is a difficulty spike in Wolong akin to
Oh,
what Gani. Oh, yeah?
are you talking about Lu Bu?
Lu
I
Bu.
think you're talking. I think you're talking about Lu Bu.
Oh,
He's
no.
on the horse. On the horse.
No, no, not on the horse. Not on the horse. He's
I
later on in the game.
I don't
Um,
I don't think. Do
no,
you
yes,
fight
on the
Guan
horse,
Yu?
on the horse. Wait, no, no, I am.
Yeah,
You are complete. I am the one in the wrong. Yes, I'm talking about Lu Bu. Like in the
Lu
castle
Bu. Yeah.
courtyard, it's like
Yes.
sort of snowy. He's got the
Yes.
fire
Yes.
arrows. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
I
my
thought
bad.
so. Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm because I was going to bring him up myself because what made me think of it is you were talking about Ongbal and how good he is at the game. Well, shortly after I managed to fumble my way through Lubu on like attempt 10 or 11, Ongbal released a video of him zero hitting Lubu at level 1. And I was like, I hate you.
Yeah, like absolutely nuts content on Angval's side. They are a master, like, at the game.
Yep. Truly, truly, very, very envious of their ability.
hmm I know that like I bring up Lu Bu just because it's like he is definitely a gameplay checkpoint where if you can't get past
Yeah.
him, you won't like he is there for a reason. He is there to make sure that you are ready for the rest of the game.
Yeah. So going off on a tangent, talking about that kind of that skill check level of the game, do you think Elden Ring has any of them? Would you say there's any main bosses that people like this is a skill check here? Like this is Lubu level of you might be stuck on this boss for a while.
I would say Morgott would be the closest you get to that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like to a lesser extent, and this is funny because it's not even a remembrance, Magma Worm Makar is a checkpoint to make sure you can't leave Liurnia because like
Yes.
yeah, you either have to go to Fort Ferroth, which generally people that go there will fight Radahn because that's what you do when you play a game, you kill the boss of the area.
Yep.
And you'll come away with the Dectus medallion, so that will guarantee that you're strong enough. Or you'll do Magma Worm Makar, but that's more of a level stats checkpoint. It's not such a gameplay intensive thing. So like really it's mostly Morgott. He's got the beginning of those fast-paced combos and zero full HP to zero death combos that a lot of late game bosses are capable of. So he's sort of there to be
Yeah.
like, get ready. It's the Morgott
Yeah,
vibe.
this is what's to come. Expect more of this. Yeah, yeah.
A sort of cool idea is that within the lore, Morgott is the pinnacle of strength of the modern Shattering era. Like, he's the king of Leyndell. He was the only demigod that conquered Leyndell, but all of his deeds came to nothing. So when you beat him, you either have to, in the lore, become the Lord of Leyndell if you want to, like, quit the game at that point if you're unwilling to burn the Erd Tree like Morgott was. Or you commit the cardinal sin and you rise above the modern level of what like the pinnacle of strength was and you start fighting the ancient legends of old, like the fire giant from the prehistory, Godfrey, the first lord of the Erd Tree, Radigan, who's fought from the very beginning, Gideon, who revived from, uh, you get my drift.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'd never realized that. That's so cool. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Also, yeah, I went off on a really weird tangent in my mind when you explained it. Wouldn't that be amazing if there was like some jokey April Fool's DLC where you take over from Morgott and suddenly now it's like Stardew Valley, but you're just looking after Leyndell?
I would love that. That
That
would
would be
be the
so cool, right?
cutest fan game, honestly.
Some indie developer needs to listen to this and make that now.
Yeah, that'd be, oh my goodness. Just like you're rebuilding the perfumer department, you've got the royal
Yes.
guard.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're getting, towards the end of the episode. It's been a real pleasure to have you on. Like, thank you so much for joining me at the Roundtable Hold today, Dom.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you too. I did not realize we had been going nearly 2 hours already. That's crazy.
I know, the time can fly, can't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to shout anything out before you get going? I know that, like, date-wise, this is gonna, the recording might not line up so well with the publication of the episode, but if you have anything that's ongoing you want to talk about, or anything that you think will be a big hit that you just want to bring up, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure, bring it to the audience as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the only real thing really is just shouting out that I am trying to grow the Twitch channel, the live streams alongside the YouTube channel as well. Because obviously, anyone that knows me already will probably know me because of the YouTube channel. But it's really great to be able to interact with the community live on Twitch. So anyone that would really like to get to know the creator and not just the videos, it means the world to me. I respond to every single message. We always have a blast. We're always playing Elden Ring, doing various fun challenges. So even no matter what time you hear this podcast, I will be live one day that week, well, probably multiple days that week, doing some kind of ridiculous challenge run. We've got so many in the works, like a purely damage over time run, a madness only run, consumables run, spirit ashes run. So yeah, alongside the YouTube comment, my real passion is being able to interact with the community live and build up them connections and support people as you're going through the game yourself. Yeah, so that really. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I will put links to your channel down below. Go check them out. Give them a watch. I'll probably check you out myself at some point. I know that, like, almost all of my guests stream, so I try to, like, tune in every now and again, just to, like, because it's fun to see how they're doing.
I totally appreciate that. Is a big commitment. So if it's very infrequent, I won't take offense. But that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And thank you again for joining us. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you so much.
This has been Elden Case, an Elden Ring discussion. Thank you as always for watching this far. I deeply appreciate any viewer taking time out of their day to listen in. And if you like what you heard, then we release new episodes the bi-monthly schedule. Next episode is going to feature YouTuber Rage Akari, who will come on to talk about his experience writing lore theories, and as well as interacting with Elden Ring's community, along with his prior experience in competitive gaming before joining us at the From Software fan group, so to say. So stay tuned for that. Down below, you'll find links to my personal YouTube, my blog, and my Twitter, where I post cat pictures weekly. You'll also find Dom's links, so go give his channel some love. And before I go, I'd like to thank Teo and the Cosmic Neighborhood once again for letting me use their great music for the podcast. And I'd also like to thank my moderators Agaric and Mogvfvb for helping me make this podcast a reality. With all that said, I'll see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't you dare go hollow on me.